Fondra for Sydney. I'm wondering who Western Sydney will have. But you've got a plethora of super young stars who have got so much talent, though. Have we found any more new, any extra ones to the Tourés and others that we saw last year?
Yeah, look,
Excite so many of us.
yeah, look, I think we've seen in the first couple of FA Cup games, young Bernardo, Cassio's son. That's a great of the club, Cassio. His young son now is starting to break into our scenes, and he's started our last two FA Cups, and he's a very exciting player to watch. He's the type of player that the supporters will really enjoy and come out to see the skills that he has.
Now, your first game, have you seen the schedule? You know who you're playing?
Yeah, we're away to Perth Glory, so we'll get the first look at Sturridge. So it'll be a very good test for our defensive qualities.
Probably good to play against him before
he's got his... what did you say to
fitness.
yourself and to the players when you heard that Daniel Sturridge had been the pickup for the Perth Glory as their designated player?
Yeah, I suppose it's a great advertisement for the A-League to get to attract a player of that quality. And you just hope that he can come and play to that high level that he's played at in the UK. So because it'd be exciting for our young players to see a player that's played at the highest level.
It is seriously exciting. Ex-Chelsea, ex-Manchester United, and of course ex-Liverpool. And that's just about the entire EPL fan base in Australia, isn't it? Except for Spurs and Arsenal. And I don't mention Arsenal in the same breath.
Yeah, most definitely. As you said, he's had great pedigree, and you just hope that he can come here and, except for when he plays Adelaide, he can do what he's done in his career.
Now, tell me, you had a terrific run, and you're into the top 16 now of the FFA Cup. What are you making of this FFA Cup, especially now that it's gone from a midweek competition to a standalone weekend affair where you get the coverage and you get everything else that goes along with it?
Yeah, look, I think it's exciting. It's more exciting for the supporters to be able to see that more readily. And I think that's something that's going to be exciting about the new A-League season this year with the coverage from Channel 10 and Paramount. It's so more easy accessible to the supporters. And my understanding that the coverage is going to be a lot of higher quality than what it has been in the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Are we going to see more changes to Hindmarsh?
Yeah, we're in the process of...
Coopers.
Yeah, we're in the process of, I think they're just finishing off the new change room. So we've got 4 new change rooms there, and they're starting to put the roof on the eastern side.
Wow, that is so exciting to hear, because that venue, I've watched it now for the old NSL games. I've watched it for Olympic competition, and I've seen it as a World Cup qualifier. It really is a boutique stadium, and it's getting better and better and better. And let me tell you, if you're playing there, you feel it. You know everybody around you. There are no shady spots where you can hide.
No, it's a great stadium, and I think the luxury of it is that no matter where you are in the stadium, that you're going to get a good seat and you're close to the action. That's the greatness of the stadium, and that's why our supporters get right behind our team, and they do lift our team because they are so close.
So who's up next in the FFA Cup for you?
We're not sure. They'll have to. I think they've got another draw coming up, and I think that we'll try and get those games done in December, so it's not too far away.
And last but not least, what did you make of the new commercial that Channel 10 and Paramount Plus have just released, showcasing the game?
Yeah, I think it's great. As I said earlier, I think the Paramount Plus and Channel 10 now, they're going to get right behind the game and put it to where it should be in the front of everyone, because we have a great product, and at times, as always, we undersell the product that we have. And as you said, we've got some great young talent coming through, and we saw that last season. More clubs gave opportunities to young players, and hopefully that carries on through this season. And we've brought some great players back as well. So it's going to be a very exciting season ahead.
Who's your first keeper? Do you know yet?
Last year, it was James and Joe Gauchi. So again, Joe's missed most of pre-season with an injury. So it'll be James Delanoff. He'll be our number one starting the season. But once Joe Gauchi gets up and fit again, it'll be a close competition between those two young keepers.
You've got some terrific talent there between the sticks, Carl. I wish them a fantastic season. You know full well that every team is set up when they've got a good keeper and a good strong spine, and then it's up to the boys at the other end or the girls at the other end who have the talent and the wherewithal to break down defences, which is something you did a lot more often than you give us to believe. We enjoyed watching you play. We like the style of play that you've unleashed over the last year or two. And if you've got more youngsters like you've given us a preview, it's going to be a seriously exciting season for the Adelaide Reds.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think that's something that the club has really embraced in giving our younger players an opportunity. And it's exciting for those players that are at the club now, but it's also exciting for the players that are in our youth team, that they can see that there's a pathway there. If they work hard, that we will give them an opportunity.
That's fantastic. You're right. The pathways, so important, because it's their career, especially if they give it their all and if they stay away from injury. It's a terrific path. And not only that, it allows them to travel the world, because the world would be their oyster. It's a sport played just about on in every country, and the biggest competitions in the world are craving to see new talent. There might be a few Australians, let's hope, in the EPL, the Serie A, the La Liga. There are some youngsters out there who are also showing their wares, but we wish you every success this season, and thanks very much for joining us on FNR. And as we get closer, I'd love to get you back just before we start the season proper.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me, and I'm gladly come back at any time.
All right. Thank you very much. Carl Veart on FNR, and we'll be back very, very shortly with yet another guest and an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the state of the game in Australia.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Buying your electricity from the big energy companies is now the most expensive way to power your home. In fact, the average electricity bill in Australia has more than doubled in the last 15 years, but not for the ones who went solar. Unlike your electricity bill, the price of solar has actually come down, and there's also government rebates available. So what are you waiting for? Join the 2 million households already saving hundreds of dollars every year. See how much your roof could be making you at solarpowerco.com.au. Go solar and get $500 cash back with the Solar Power Co, Australia's most trusted solar brand. solarpowerco.com.au.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.
Welcome back. This is an opportunity to talk a bit more about the game. Josh Parrish has joined me now. apologies to those of you that were watching and it suddenly went blank. Apparently somebody's computer, no names, no pack drill, just had a little glitch. In television parlance, they're called gremlins. You know anything about gremlins, Josh?
I know you're not supposed to get them wet.
Correct.
Not supposed to get your laptop wet either. That wasn't the case, thankfully.
Okay. So we're back up. We are running. Apologies to the last segments, to the a few questions there with Carl Veart, who was terrific. Gave us a sense of just how important it's been to play some key games before the season starts. They've had a chance to play some meaningful football, some FFA Cup games. They've made it to the last 16. They're now waiting for the draw to see who they play next. And in the meantime, he's wetting the some of that talent, giving it a chance to settle itself before the competition starts. But as Adelaide mentioned, as Carl Veart mentioned, they're not in a position, unlike some of the other A-League clubs in the country, to use the new designated player rule. But they're throwing themselves at that magnificent nursery that's continuing each and every season to throw up 3, 4, 5 young stars who really bring something special to the game. You've certainly enjoyed calling them, the games that is, and you've repeatedly said to me, love that talent coming through. How do they do it? Well, he gave us a glimpse. They just say to them, you play, we'll give you a pathway.
Yeah, Adelaide have been wholly committed and have put, it's easy to talk about youth development and talk is cheap, as they say. But Adelaide actually do give young players opportunities. And you can argue that that's, part of the business model of the owners, that they don't want to spend too much money and they're, flogging players overseas, and that's part of the model. It's a benefit to Australian football, so I don't really care, because all of these young players getting match minutes means that we see guys like Mo Toure and Cassini Yengi come through, where in other clubs their progress might have been stifled and they might have had to go overseas to get that kind of opportunity.
10 years ago, to see a 15-year-old playing in the A-League they came on for a minute or two late in the game to basically take up time. We're likely to see, and what he's told us there in that interview, he says not only has he got young Nesta from their youth setup coming through at 15, but he's got Cassio's son, who is a legend at the club, and he's about the same age. And they say he's seriously talented and someone that they're going to put a lot of faith in. That is just awesome. I mean, that gives us an opportunity to say that the next 4 years, we're going to see a new crop of Olyroos and let me tell you, a new crop of Socceroos, because as we're finding out, even in the Matildas, who are about to play some meaningful games against Brazil, the coach, Tony Gustafsson, who's finally landed in Australia, he says that he's going to expose some seriously young talent to that cauldron called international football. And what have I heard? He's got an 18-year-old who loves running at defences and terrorising them. She's from Penrith. I think she plays for the Wanderers. Her name's Bria Henry, and he's just told her, I think, she's been called up to play for the Matildas against Brazil.
After just 11 W League games. And I can say W League because it was called the W League when she played them. But 2 goals, 6 starts, that is quite the return on your burgeoning professional career to get a Matildas call-up after 11 professional games.
I've got to say, I love it. I absolutely love it. I think if you're good enough, you're old enough. And forget whether you've had 1 game or 10 games. We've seen 2 youngsters come out of Melbourne. Mind you, they're both Sydney boys originally, Azani and Tilio, and we've loved their progress, and we've watched people go, there's no way these guys can play for Australia, and there's no way they can play for the Olyroos. And just remind me again, and remind the audience, what did both those players do?
They excel.
Made an impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's exciting stuff. And Adelaide, bring it on. We thank Carl Veart for giving us the opportunity to discuss his preparations and some of the things that he's learned from Zoran Matić. And he said Zoran was tough, but he could also be very, very generous. And I think Carl would love to have a rerun of that career of his, because as he said, as a country boy, he came down a little bit wide-eyed, didn't really push it too hard, had enough talent to play and scored some great goals and played in some terrific teams. But he would love, on reflection, maybe to have tried it a little harder.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting as a coach to have those, moments of hindsight in your career and think about what you would tell your younger self. And that's basically what you tell the players that you're coaching. If you could go back in time, what would I have wanted to know? But George, before we get Carl Robinson on, I think there's a bit of controversy brewing in the West with Perth Glory having to move their home FFA Cup game against Melbourne Victory to Victoria with the continual hard border closure. And Tony Sage has really called for Victory to have to forfeit the fixture instead of doing that. I don't know where you come down on this. I think that would be a little bit extraordinary if Football Australia were to make that decision. Surely the game being played matters more than where it's played.
Yes, I concede that point. It's important to play the game, but yet again, it puts them at a distinct disadvantage. You're asking Perth Glory, and it happens in every other sport. If you play in Perth and you have to travel like very few other clubs and other teams, and we've seen it in the AFL, we've seen it in the cricket, but I still think if it's a good, strong side and it has the right spirit about it, and they don't dwell on, the discomfort and the fact that they're being pushed out of their comfort zone to play a home game away, I think if you just say to yourself, no, we're good enough to win, and we're going to showcase our designated player and he's going to rip you guys apart, I think that's the way to go. But I can understand how Tony Sage feels.
There is one further complicated factor.
I think deep down he
George
loves the us and them.
There is one, yes, Tony Sage leans into that very effectively, I think.
Yeah, he does.
It's savvy on his part, because I think it plays up to the parochial supporters in the West. But there's one other complicating factor, which is the winner of this tie is scheduled to play against Adelaide City, who of course progress. So that means that Adelaide City has to keep training and keep paying their players for weeks and weeks and weeks on end until this game can finally be scheduled in Victoria. And it's actually Greg Griffin, who's the chairman of that club, who you might remember from his Adelaide United days. And he's called on the governing body to hand Perth Glory the forfeit win and saying that it's a partial situation that basically denies Adelaide City a fair chance of proceeding to the next stage, because they'll be training on their own and not playing any competitive fixtures in that time span.
Look, a lot of that commentary is on the money. They will be playing very few games, but they'll be training. We've seen other teams do it. We've seen them in the FFA Cup. I think it was Bentley Greens. They had the youngsters there playing with no meaningful competition until they played this particular game. And they made it all the way to, I think, was it the semi-finals? That's not a bad effort for an NPL side. And everybody jumped on board. I can remember turning up at the ground to see the contest between Perth Glory and the Bentley Greens. And there were more outside broadcast fans there at that ground than I had seen at any game in the last 10, 15 years. So they captured the imagination of just about everybody. And when you see commercial news outlets there covering the game, you know that, they've done something special. So maybe it might be an opportunity for another heroic set of deeds to be done. And we might be able to have some great storylines for the new FFA Cup season, and of course the opening rounds of the A-League, the A-League men's, the A-League women's, and the A-League youth. Look, I'm getting excited watching the new ads, listening to some of the talk back, and more than anything else, seeing the amount of posts on social media right across the board. That suggests to me that we're on to something exciting.
Yeah, I mean, this is of course a play-in game for Victory because they finished on the bottom of the ladder. So maybe then the position of the forfeit is a little bit more reasonable because Victory maybe shouldn't have qualified for the competition anyway, and this was sort of the concession that Football Australia made to those bottom two sides, that they would have an opportunity to play their way in. But maybe that was a mistake in hindsight to create these extra fixtures and the headache. It's easy to say now with all the lockdowns we've had in the meantime. But George, we better take a break because Carl Robinson is waiting for us on the other side.
Fantastic. Let's do it.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Buying your electricity from the big energy companies is now the most expensive way to power your home. In fact, the average electricity bill in Australia has more than doubled in the last 15 years, but not for the ones who went solar. Unlike your electricity bill, the price of solar has actually come down, and there's also government rebates available. So what are you waiting for? Join the 2 million households already saving hundreds of dollars every year. See how much your roof could be making you at solarpowerco.com.au. Go solar and get $500 cash back with the Solar Power Co, Australia's most trusted solar brand. solarpowerco.com.au.
Since 1998, Lanco Group has been providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.
State of Our Football Nation on FNR. George Danikian, Josh Parrish and the second of the Carls joining us on the program this afternoon. First it was Carl Veart, this time it's Carl Robinson. Welcome.
Welcome, George. How are you?
I'm okay, but Carl Veart is getting very excited because he tells me he's got a crop of youngsters that he's got to herd on one level, hold them back. He's got to time the run before he unleashes them. How are you coping? Because you seem to have almost a complete squad, and it's made up of some seriously smart youngsters and some wise old heads.
Well, this Carl is exactly the same as the previous Carl, but we haven't yet got to play any games. So I'm having to hold my youngsters back because there are no games, but that's shortly changing. So, yeah, no, I'm really happy and content where we are at the moment with the right balance, with the right mix. You know, we as a club always invest in our youngsters. And now, you know, in the last 12, 18 months, I think we've put an invested interest on these young ones coming through. You will always have the adage of when is the right time to throw these youngsters in. Last year, I think lots of clubs took that step upon themselves because there was no other option really, which showed how much talent we have here in Australia. So when you get talented youngsters, what you can't do is block pathways. You know, what I've tried to do with my squad is integrate the experienced Australian players, the areas that I think needed strengthening to supplement the talented youngsters, because we certainly are like Adelaide. We've got some exceptional young talents coming through, and some that haven't actually made their name yet or debuts, but are on the verge of doing it as well.
Carl, how hard is it trying to get that competition going within a squad where they all feel that they've got a hope to play or an opportunity to play, and still have not the hierarchy, but a certain idea that your 50 gamer is, if he's playing to form, will likely be the mainstay, but the youngsters, will be chomping at the bit, and come training during the week, they're going to be pushing to show that they are ready, coach.
I think that's the biggest thing for a coach in football or a manager, is they have to decide when is the right time to throw these kids in, because Arsene Wenger, I've said on previous times that I've, spoken to people about youth development all over the world, is he was the, genius at allowing players to play 3-4 games and then pulling them out. Or even though it was against what the normal fan wanted, because Aaron Ramsey, Cesc Fabregas were in a run of form, but he knew, because young players do have little dips. And if they have a dip and they don't play well, usually they come out of the team anyway. So it's trying to get that time before they dip, bring them out of the team to keep their hunger levels there and their spirits high, because if they don't, their confidence drops. And it's hard for a young player because he's not experienced it before and dealing with confidence issues throughout seasons. So that's the biggest thing for a manager, I think, is knowing when to do it. And you won't please everyone, but it's just being real with them, understanding that it's a squad game. 11 players don't win. You need your full complement of 20 plus players.
You've brought in some interesting talent, and all of it is skilled and capable. Tell us about some of the youngsters.
Well, we started building last year. I think there were a few names that come out of it from last year in relation to come from nowhere, and everyone loves a fairy tale story. We know that Cinderella. Mark Natter, who hadn't played 1 minute of what first team, Thomas Aquilino, didn't even have a contract. These boys come from nowhere. So we were really proud of them, because it shows these young players have got to go through adversity, deal with adversity at some point in their careers. Some it doesn't happen to until they get to 22, 23, 24, and then they don't know how to deal with it because their expectation is they're a first team player. So, having it at the early stage of your career is sometimes good, because you're always trying to prove people wrong, which is what you have to do in sport anyway. So they were two really pleasing ones. We signed Daniel Margush last year, a goalkeeper who played 26 games. We had Tate Russell, we had Keanu Bacchus, who put in another fantastic season of 23 plus games, and we were delighted with that blend. This year, I've got 3 or 4 talented 15, 16, 17-year-olds that are frothing at the mouth, wanting to be part of it. And I've had them in pre-season. They haven't looked at a place. What they have looked is young talent. But that's why it's important I supplemented that with the experienced players. So someone they can learn from, and more importantly, good people. Because if you got them with good people, good professionals, then they're able to learn.
Are they big bodies or small and wiry and fast as?
They're probably, I'm blessed in the defensive side of the game from last year with Natter, with Tass, with Phil Kankar and the fullback scenario. So I was looking for some attacking players. We have got at the moment some really small, nippy, exciting, fast, talented players. Obviously, football's a physical game as well, and you have to compete. So it's finding out when is the right time to put them in, or put them in. You can't put 3 or 4 of them in at the same time, because we will struggle from set pieces, as an example. So you don't, but you drip feed them in. So that, they're super little, fast, exciting players.
Josh?
You've got I think a fast, exciting player from Japan. I don't know too much about him, but he does have quite an impressive CV, and it's the latest in a trend of A-League clubs looking for loan deals from the J-League. How did Kajiro Ogawa come on your radar?
Great pronunciation. I would have just called him Ogawa. So, we were, I bought Rami Najjarine in, which was really important for us. I did actually sign him at Newcastle last year, but didn't play. He didn't play for me because I left before he came in the door. So it shows how keen I was on him as a player, because I think we're scratching the surface with him. you can't go with just one winger or two wingers, so you have to get a little bit of depth. So I was looking for an experienced player in that area. So then comes the biggest question: do you go with someone that's 30 plus, that's played a lot of games, that's probably wanting something different, or do you go someone that's never been out of their country, that wants a different challenge, but has got a 300 game under his belt? And Agawa certainly fitted that bill. He can play wide, he can play underneath as a 10, he can play as a false 9. And he's quite nippy, and he's clever with his movements. And listen, football's played in the head. I say this to my players all the time. It's played up here. If you're able to play up there and deal with the competitive side of it, attacking players, they can play anywhere. And good players always come to the fore. And certainly he's a nice addition for us. I think he will help us. We'll give him time to settle, but it's exciting because it's someone that not many people know about. Obviously, our fans will get to see him a lot more, and obviously he performs on the field, which is the most important thing.
You mentioned Rami there.
Bank West is now Bank.com, is it?
Combank.
Combank
Stadium,
Combank.
yeah. Combank Stadium, ready for the Matildas on the weekend.
Fantastic.
Wow.
You mentioned Rami there, Carl. I mean, this is sort of a fairy tale homecoming for him because he's back to his roots in Western Sydney. He came up through the club's NPL ranks, of course, and we saw him at Melbourne City. I saw a few of his NPL games there, and he's just got so much natural technical ability and talent. Where do you think he needs to improve to take his game to that professional starting week in, week out, A-League level?
Well, I'm glad you said that because I agree with you 100%. He's such a talented young player, which is why I've signed him twice now. But first of all, the reason why I signed him, not just him, but Dimi Petratos, Terry Antonis, Steve Ugagovic, was because they'd got an affinity with the Western Sydney area. I had to get back to the fundamentals and the values of what Western Sydney Wanderers is about. And that is hard work. That's understanding what our supporters, what our people are all about. And who better to know that than the people from the area? It took me 12 months to learn. I was implementing my game model and how we wanted to play and all of these things. But I needed to find players that actually understood what it meant to play for Western Sydney. That's why Rami was a real interesting one for me, because he was in the program. He left the program, which is what happens sometimes to players. Ideally, we don't want that to happen too often. But there was always an opportunity for him to come back because we always look after our own. So when the opportunity came, I grasped it with both hands. How do we make him the regular A-League player? He showed glimpses last year at Newcastle, playing 12 or 13 games. I need to build him up. I need to make him a little bit more robust so he's able to deal with a 26-game season in the A-League, because it's not easy. So he needs to get his body right. He needs to get his head right. His head right is players' heads right if managers believe in them. So you've got to get to know the person, get to know the player, and then coach him. That's my job. So I've done that in pre-season with Rami. He's a phenomenal boy. He wants to learn. He wants to get better. And as a coach, that's all you can ask for.
And he wants to wear the shirt. That's the most important thing you touched on just a moment ago. For a young boy.
It's the main thing. It's the main thing. And everyone here in this Western Sydney area, we want players that actually show pride wearing this jersey. And that's all fans. That's why they love the locals. That's why they love the homegrown boys. And what you have to do as a football club is make sure you keep the best ones. You're not going to play every single one. And that's the next question or next answer. People say, well, why did you let him go and him go? Listen, it's football. Sometimes some do go. They go for different reasons. But what you have to do as a football club, and that's why you need to be strategic and all on the same page, rowing in the same direction, is not let the best ones go. And if you can do that, you have to create the pathways, play them. The head coach needs to be in sync with the academy, because there needs to be a pathway. If there's not, and it's blockages, players will leave at will. So you can't have that happen. And obviously my job is to win games of football as well. So let's not forget that.
Touche. It's a results-driven business. Absolutely right. And as we saw overseas, Steve Bruce ran into Tottenham at a time when he needed a result. By golly, they started really well. What did you make of that first few minutes?
Well, it was exciting, wasn't it? It was the
Super.
Fairy tales, dream stuff we talk about. But, I have to say, and it's easy after the event, I actually think that even if they would have won that game, I still think they probably would have come to the same conclusion of Steve Bruce stepping away. I'm glad they allowed him to complete his 1,000 game, because what an achievement. First of all, what a human being. He's a fantastic man. Anyone in football who knows him, who has worked with him speaks so highly of him. You know, some of the stuff that he had to put up with, I think, was scandalous and shocking, and he should never have to do that. But unfortunately, in society, that is happening. So, I think they made the right decision because it suits both parties. Even if they would have beaten Tottenham, I still think this would have been the same outcome. But what an achievement and what a man.
How do you shut out that sort of noise and criticism as a coach? I mean, it was next level with Bruce, the abuse he was receiving. It was almost impossible to ignore. But how do you narrow your focus and put your blinkers on when that's happening?
Well, one of the first bits of advice I got given was from John Toshak. He said, "Listen, if you want to, John Toshak was a legend, by the way, and still is a legend. If you're not ready for someone to criticize you and tell you what you're doing wrong, don't coach." And I thought, well, okay, well, there's 20, at Combank Stadium this year, we'll have 20,000 coaches sitting in the stands looking from above, and that's great. So what you have to do is you have to prepare right. You have to work as hard as you can. You have to be clear with what you want. People talk about philosophies, game models, methodologies, all of these things. You have to, as a coach, be clear with what you want, make it as simple as possible for the players so it's clear for them, allowing them to express themselves with their freedom, but play the way you want to play. Me, a manager, I'm very clear with how I want to play. And some people will say, well, why didn't you go more direct? But if I went direct, then some people will say, well, why don't you play more? So, if you play inverted wingers, they'd say play outside wingers. If you play 4-3-3, they'd say play 3-5-2. And they're entitled to their opinion. And you just got to smile and say, yeah, listen, the thing that I've got here, and I'm glad we have here in Sydney, is there's some really talented, smart, thinking people about football. So all I say is if you've got an opinion, great, have an opinion of football, but express the opinion in the right way, discuss. I discuss with my coaches every day. I discuss with my players. My players say, why do we go this way? This is a reason why. And at the end of the day, it's about the players who play. They need to be comfortable. The simple fundamental things of football, any club, roll your sleeves up, work as hard as you can, outfight your opponents. They're non-negotiables. The other things are express yourself, play with a smile on your face. Can you do more than the opposition? Share the ball, one ball between 10 players. So you can't have one dribbling all the time, losing it, and the rest of them trying to get it. So, but make them engaged in, listen, this is what we're about. We are a team.
You are the West. Bring it home. That's the challenge this year. Carl Robinson, as last time we spoke, you've been fantastic and honest and gave us a chance to cover so much territory. There's so much more we want to talk to you about. We've just run out of time. Josh, have you got anything before we close this?
Yeah, no, I think we'll leave it there. Carl, just thanks for being so open with us, and say hi to John Toshak for us.
I certainly will. I keep in touch with him, so that's all good.
Mate, just before we go, just reflect for a moment the 1,000 games as a manager that Steve Bruce managed to complete. That is a phenomenal effort of standing up, coping with the different tiers of football and the different responsibilities and all those players, and still being able to contribute. And I agree with you. Michael Ashley, was it Michael Ashley?
Yep.
Mike Ashley, the former owner, thank God he left. Was it 12 long years?
12, it was a long time, yeah.
12 long, too long for Newcastle fans. Look, it's an exciting period that they're facing, but as you touched on a moment ago, a very special man who certainly has given above and beyond. And it should be said, he's a Newcastle fan too, isn't he?
Well, he wanted to play for anyone who knows him, he wanted to play for the football club and he didn't get the chance. And then he managed his boyhood club. Right, so it means everything to him. And I think that is what hurt him the most, is he got to do something which thousands and thousands of Geordie fans would love to do. And he'd done it to the best of his ability. And that's why the criticism, I think, is unfair. Listen, people like change. All right, they always think there's something better out there, which, the finances help as well. So we will clearly see a different type of manager coming in now. But let's not forget what Steve Bruce done. He took him to 12th or 13th in the league. He managed his boyhood club because he is one of those Geordie supporters. He's just a Geordie supporter on the touchline. So let's give him his privacy now while he takes time to reflect.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you very much, Carl.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
All the best. Look forward to it. Okay, there you go. The two Carls, and both, I reckon, score 5 stars today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a great show. Thanks, George.
Thank you, mate. All the very best. Catch you next week.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.